All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star in here. It's a Leaf game night tonight. The Vegas Golden Knights are back in town. The champs are here. It's going to be a fun one tonight. Of course, you can watch that on TSN.
I drove by the rink on the way here, which was 3 hours ago when I left, and I thought, maybe give the boys a little something when they come out on the ice. Something different. They had a great road trip. They're 7-0. They're playing good. I know you pay a lot of money for the tickets to go to the game, but just when they come out to start the game, maybe just a little juice, a little clap, maybe a little stand-up. I don't know.
Are you holding your breath on that happening?
But why not?
I agree with you, but
they switched it up. They gave you something different, and I get it. It costs a lot of money to go to a game. Some people want to just sit there and wait for something to happen. But just mix it up a little bit.
I'd like to see that. I think the bigger issue is it's a Tuesday. The weather's not great.
Dude,
people are going to be slow getting in there.
What?
I hear you. I agree with that. I'm just saying I'm not holding my breath. Although I saw our boy Bonesy, Joe Bowen, said he thinks Morgan Rielly in particular should get a standing O. Because we haven't seen him skate down at Scotiabank since he buried Ridley Gregg a couple of weeks ago.
Look, that's the turning point.
Yeah.
I mean, Sheldon Keefe's been saying it. Like, our team, what did he say today? Our team has changed since that game. And alluding to the Rielly incident, alluding to him lighting up the team to some degree. The coach saying, hey, fellas, look what he just did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe we all got to snap to it here. Big moment in the season.
Who would have thought that for these guys, that would be the turning point?
That's the potential turning point. It's been so far with 7 regular season games after that. We're going to get the ultimate answer by the end of the year, one way or another. But I can buy into that. It's easy to suggest it because they've been winning, but I think they've been winning and playing very well. It hasn't been overly physical. I mean, I guess they've answered the bell when need be after Rielly. Won't that be the next test, though? Like when someone else does something, and it's going to happen. That's the nature of the sport. Mm-hmm. Someone is going to test this team, likely spontaneously. It doesn't mean it's premeditated, but someone's going to throw a massive hit or get an elbow out. Then what happens?
When you talk about it hasn't been overly physical, there is a different edge to it. I mean, they're just the way they go in the corner, the way they approach a one-on-one battle. It's not necessarily like running over because that's just not their game. Mm-hmm. But there's just competing. And we talked about it last week, like William Nylander giving a couple cross-checks in Arizona.
That. It was I like it a lot.
Just different.
I agree.
I like a different edge to it.
I'm not putting a negative spin on it at all. I guess I'm just speaking of the nature of the sport now that like the Rielly thing, I don't think it was like we're not going to be pushed around because that wasn't the nature of what Greg did. It was a slap shot into an empty net. He didn't bury some guy, then drop his gloves and taunt the bench, and no one did anything.
No, I think it was just a situation where he said, we've had enough of guys, Radko Gudas yelling at our goalie's face and then skating away, the Tampa Bay Lightning jumping us and beating us up, and we wanted nothing. It's time for us to initiate.
Exactly.
And maybe that was the ultimate message. It's just time for us to initiate. Man, I feel like I'm motivational today.
I feel like you're Matt Foley right now.
Matt Foley
you're living in a van down by the river, and I love it.
I think it's that, O-Dog, and I also think like there was some frustration in that Rielly hit on Ridley Gregg about the fact that they were letting another 2 points slip away to a team
bad team
that has no business beating the Maple Leafs, that they should not be allowing to punk them in an empty net, you know. And I think Morgan Rielly's the longest serving Leaf. He's been here for a lot of ups and plenty of downs. And I think maybe with Morgan Rielly especially, and maybe a little bit with Matthews and Marner and these guys who've been, they're in year 8 and Rielly's past that. There's just a feeling like, guys, we may be running out of time here. Like the 10th anniversary of the Shannon Plan is in April. The time is limited, fellas. Like how many times do we have to sit through another post-playoff, post-mortem that says we've learned lessons and we're going to grow from this. And this is, good teams have to go through this. I think Morgan Rielly was kind of saying, like, enough, guys. Like, the time is now.
Sure. And I think, again, it's easier to say that now that it's worked out. I don't know what he was thinking in the moment. It could have been just pure frustration. It could have been, I don't like this guy. It could have been a deeper meaning than that.
Could have been pissed off at Trump and a minus. Who knows?
Yeah, it could. Exactly. And that could be, it could all, come together and speak to what you're saying there, Dave. But ultimately, the answer is going to come in the spring, like everything else with this team, whether they've learned those lessons, whether they're actually pissed off, whether they're actually chomping at the bit, whether they actually believe they can do it. Like, a lot of it is simply belief in that room. You've been in rooms, like, you either feel it or you don't. There's either a spark or there isn't. And that may have been the spark. There may have been something that allowed them to basically confront themselves and say, listen, we got to do this, the right way. We got to do it a certain way, or we're not going to have success. I'd like to believe that's what happened. I'd like to believe it's going to continue. And there's a trade deadline conversation that revolves around that. Like, do you need help? Do you not need help? I've been beating this drum for weeks that I think the heavy lifting, it's been done by now. It doesn't mean you can't tweak. But this 7-game winning streak, that's not based on a trade that sparked that. It's an action from the longest-standing league. And it's been their best players that have dragged them there, with contributions from Bertuzzi, Bobby McMahon, Benoit blocking shots, Liljegren playing his best hockey. But it's also been Matthews ripping home goals at a ridiculous rate. Mitch Marner playing outstanding.
Dominant hockey from
Dominant from Mitch Marner. And Willie, I would say as well. Like, Nylander, he had the unbelievable start. He signed the deal. It kind of dipped a little bit. Now Willie's been rocking again. Like, the last 7 games, he's played with an attitude.
I'll give him props because he could have just dipped off and just said, Matthews is humming. He sticks his nose in there and he's getting his cookies.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, we talk about depth scoring and all of this, and everyone's got a different viewpoint on what's been the issue in the past, what hasn't been the issue, what needs to trigger them finally figuring this out. But when you're as loaded as you are offensively up front, the best way to, like, bury a team is have multiple guys going. Like, have multiple waves of lines where it's like, we can't stop these guys. Like, there's just no way. They're too good right now.
And the best example of that is the 2 years that Tampa Bay run. Every time there was a goal needed, guess who it was?
Yeah.
It was Braden Point. It was Kucherov. It was Stamkos. It was Cirelli. Like, the handful of guys that are getting paid the dough, they're the ones that would step up. And you could even zero in on the 2 guys. Kucherov and Point were the guys doing all the damage.
Always those 2 guys.
Always.
It was always. Like, the first year Stamkos was hurt. He wasn't even playing.
That's right.
And it was Point and Kucherov every single time, or it certainly felt like it.
Or it was that they had that great third line, too, that could spark you, right? With
Yanni Gord. And they could contribute, for sure.
They spark things.
Like, heavy lifting was always the big boys.
For sure. You're right. It was always the big boys in terms of production. But I think that spark comes from that third line. And you have to have, like, to your point about the wave after wave of lines, like, that was sort of the vision of building a top-heavy core 4 team, right? That was Dubas's vision. And we haven't seen it enough, and maybe now we're only starting to see it and hey, Sheldon Keefe changes his lines. Like, they could be back to what they were tonight after a first period that doesn't go well. But spreading the 4 guys out over 3 lines makes a lot of sense to me.
I agree with you.
And it's working right now.
Absolutely.
And he may go away from it. Like, we know Sheldon Keefe, the minute they play 20 crappy minutes, he may just say, okay, Willie and JT, you're back together, and Domi, get out of here.
Yeah. I hope he's learned from this, though. I hope, like, that, I think, this is where the coach comes into play as well. Like, the coach is responsible for how guys are feeling as well, and how the lineup's going to shake out, and what kind of approach you're going to take to every single game. And Sheldon's been doing this long enough. I know he understands. Will he act as if he does is a different question. They're going to have a bad game.
Yeah.
Like, they might get smoked tonight. That doesn't take away 7 really quality games where you saw what was capable here. And I'd like to believe, I don't know if it will happen, but I'd like to believe that he has realized, okay, this is a good idea. And yes, we're going to have some bad games, but we're going to go back to the well. And if it's John Tavares who's going to have to be the mainstay and a guy that's going to spearhead a third line, so be it. Stick with it. Doesn't matter if they lose a couple games. Doesn't matter if he doesn't have a great shift or 2 here or there, or Willie's slagging for whatever reason.
Dude, you get
commit to your plan.
Yeah, you get in a playoff series and you got a guy like Tavares on the third line. There's an opportunity for a matchup where he should be just licking his chops.
Absolutely.
Saying, I could maybe take advantage of the other team's third line.
Yeah.
Because the other team maybe doesn't have a John Tavares on their third line, and he should be licking his chops.
Yep.
100%. Like, I know
what
people
they're
are spinning
looking at.
this as like, people are spinning this, well, Tavares is sacrificing here. Like, Tavares is taking one for the team. I look at it the exact opposite. This is a tremendous opportunity for John Tavares. Like, this is, now it's pick your poison, right? Like, we got 2 really good lines stacked atop my line, and my line's really good too. That third line right now is
They're playing well.
They're playing well together.
Yep.
So for Tavares to get, to your point, like, if you want to put all your resources into trying to stop Matthews and Marner, and then, by the way, His second line ain't bad with a guy named Willie Nylander producing a ton off the wing. Like, who's John Tavares going to be facing? Like, you're talking about third line matchups. That's a great deal for him.
Sounds good on paper, fellas.
It sounds good on paper.
Well, it's always sounded good on paper, and that's why Dubas stuck with it for so long.
Right. And that's why he then is going to have that responsibility, and in a weird way, maybe even more pressure on him to perform than he has the previous 5 years he's been here.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do get out there in sheltered minutes against lesser competition, and more often than not, you're on in the second pair, third pair, you got to capitalize, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are being given an opportunity here to sure play with some players that don't have the same talent levels, clearly, as a Nylander or a Marner, but still guys who are hungry at this point in McMahon and Robertson, and we'll see what the lineup looks like come game one. But if you're going up against third and fourth lines and second and third deep pairings, John Tavares is not 42 years old. Like,
No.
It's not like you're asking too much of him. If anything, you're asking him to really punch above that weight. He has to. It's basically mandatory, and I think he's going to be in a position to do that. So Leafs Vegas tonight. Alek Manoah made his spring training debut, and
Come on, man.
it is not good. So it's one start. We're going to preface it with that. It's the spring. It's still February. We are weeks away from the real stuff. But he went 1 2/3 innings. He hit 3 batters.
What?
Yeah, he hit 3 guys. He allowed a couple. This is courtesy of Keegan Matheson down there. A couple of loud doubles on sliders.
That
And
means guys just teed off on
basically
them.
the velocity would have been off the charts. And if it was slightly altered, that thing was hit to the moon. And he threw 17 of his 38 pitches for strikes, which is just an atrocious rate. Like, if you're well under 50% strike rate, again, it's the first game. I would guess he's nervous.
Dude, don't do.
But
let me
I'm
just-
going to say that.
I know.
It's not. This is not the real stuff. It's the spring.
You saying that just brings me back to last year where
I
you're
know.
like, this guy's going to start a bunch. He's
I
going to
know.
win 10 or 15 games. He's the dominant starter. But after what he's been through, it's alarming for him to
It
go
is.
out there and do that today.
It is.
There must be people watching saying, what in the hell do we have on our hands now?
Absolutely. Like 1 2/3, 4 earned runs, gave up 3 hits. He hit 3 guys. Including, I think he hit Torkelson like in the head with a slider that just hung and just hit the guy in the head.
The 3
Like,
hit
it's
batters
staggering.
would concern me almost more than anything. Where
Yeah.
it's like, where is this guy's mental at?
That's Ricky Vaughn stuff. Like, that's Ricky
Well,
Vaughn.
maybe
before
we
he
gotta
gets
get
the
him some
shades.
glasses.
Maybe he needs some glasses.
That'd be a good idea.
That is possible.
I like that idea, Doug. The positive, and you have.
Okay, here we go.
Look, I'm just saying.
Come on, Dave.
The thing that worried
Good luck
people-
bringing this to me and me shaking my
Okay.
head.
No.
yes.
You got to sell him on a positive. Go ahead.
Look, command is obviously an issue here. Maybe it is about his optometrist. Who knows? But the velocity was the concerning sign last year that sort of told the tale of the impending demise of Alek Manoah, and the velocity was up today. Velocity was into the 95s, a lot more than it was last year. So that's a good sign. Okay, I'm not saying he was throwing 100, but he was throwing better. He was throwing at a higher velocity at a more consistent.
Well, let me
basis
ask you this. What
than
was he
was
throwing
last
the
spring.
year he started the All-Star game? Was it 95?
No, he never. I mean, he hung.
into
He
the
probably
95s.
lived around 93, 94. Like a lot of these guys, they can reach back and get to
Right.
95, 96 if they have to. That's where command can come in to play a little bit. And those have been the reports early in camp that even in the side sessions and stuff, his velocity was pretty consistent and around 93, 94, which is a positive. But if you can't hit the broadside of a barn throwing at 93, 94, it's completely irrelevant. And, this guy's got to live on a slot. That was his out pitch. Like, when this guy was crushing it, he was obviously had great command. He was hitting the corners, and then he'd make you reach on a slider. And if he does not have faith in the slider right now, again, it's very, very early, but that is incredibly concerning. And you're dealing with a guy that obviously has confidence issues.
Yeah.
It would be impossible not to. I don't care what he's going to say outwardly and publicly about how he feels great and he can't wait to be here and he's here to help win a World Series. All that is a front because he's a human being that had a disastrous season last year. He knows everyone's watching him. He knows that start today is very different than whatever Gosman's first start. If Gosman has that stat, it's like, I don't even care.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't even matter. No one's paying attention. He's working on something. We'll see him
All
in
eyes
5
are on
days.
this guy.
Everything Manoah does is going to be highlighted, hyper-focused, and broken down to the 9th degree.
Yeah.
And it's deserved because of what happened last year. Last year was so extreme, this was always going to happen. And I would say the flip side of it is if he went 2 or 3 great innings, struck out 4 guys, we'd say, hey, it's early. I'm still going to wait. You're still not going to jump the gun. But at least you might get to a point where you feel like, all right, he's in shape. Maybe his mind is in the right place. This is going to challenge. Like Pete Walker's got to go to work now. Like this guy, like look at that. Look at the pitch sequence here. That's a lot of stuff that is way out of the strike zone. Like we're watching this up on TSN4. There's 6 or 7 pitches that are not even close.
No, there's some,
and those are
bean
four-seam
balls.
fastballs that are like he hit a guy with a four-seamer that had a lot of velocity.
Head level.
Ricky Vaughn, but
Yeah.
that's head level stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a concern, man. Like it's a concern. It's a first impression. All eyes are on this guy. That's the first time he's on the mound, and those are his numbers. They can't spin it any other way than that's
No.
troublesome.
And you talked about the mental aspect for him. For him to get to the positive side of this, like Andy Dufresne crawling through the ditch in the jail to get to the other side, like he's having a tough time seeing the light after that because it's like, I did the work, I'm in shape, I'm in better shape, and then you go out there and do it's just a tough start. Like
Yeah, it is.
for and it's only 1 and 2/3 innings, but it's just I don't think anybody was expecting to see those results.
I think you're right about that. I mean, listen, if he's off a little bit, command's off a little, hitting 3 guys and throwing 17 strikes on 38 pitches, those are staggering numbers.
I know, and he's already done it to himself. You mentioned his disastrous season. What it does is it just amplifies the eyes on him the next time he goes out there, where it's like, what do you got today now? Because last year it was like brutal outing and then followed up by brutal outing, and then the team was finally like, we don't know what to do with you.
Yeah. Well, listen, they have plans for the rotation, clearly. They have contingency plans. I can't imagine they had him even penciled in as their 5th starter. I don't think they did. I mean, we know who the big 4 are going to be. There's going to be certain guys battling for that 5th spot in the rotation. I think they were walking into this camp hoping that he could revert back to who he was in the past, and he very well still could. He's going to get a number of starts still the rest of the way. It's still February. They're 5 weeks away, 6 weeks away from opening day. He's going to get a lot of work in, a lot more preseason games in, and he's going to have an opportunity to make this a footnote that just becomes a thing of the past. But what you've done now is you've set yourself up where if the next start is a mess or you still have command issues, they're going to blow past you soon. You know what I mean? Like he's not going to be guaranteed all the way up until they break camp an opportunity to make the rotation. They might have to basically change plans on the fly, where if you're 2-3 weeks from now and this guy's had another 2 or 3 starts and they're a mess like this, you can't fake it. You can't fake that this guy's actually competing for a spot because he's not.
He might be staying in Florida.
He very
back
well
to the
could be.
complex league.
Right, and then you start having real conversations like, does he have to transition into a bullpen arm? How can he help you? Does he move on? Do they find a different role for him? Do his representatives? They didn't handle it well last year when they said you got to go down. How are they going to handle it this year if it gets to a point where it's like you're not even breaking camp with us? Although I can't imagine he'd have a lot of power or pull within the organization anymore if you have a spring training that turns into a mess. But anyway, first outing today, Alek Manoah goes 1 2/3, gave up 4 earned runs, 3 hits, couple of loud doubles, courtesy of Keegan Matheson, and hit 3 batters. So take that for what it's
doubles
worth.
is such a slap right in the grill.
Loud doubles.
That just means that they teed off on those baseballs and did damage.
Yeah. Yeah. Rob tweeting and saying, I've been out of the country for 3 weeks. O-Dog, you look fantastic. Good for you. There it is, man. A little shout out. We're not going to play the music yet. We're not going to get to the sirens yet. But
dude, I'll tell you what.
we're
There's
moving
nothing
in that
better.
direction.
There's nothing better than I got a fantastic cleaners on the lakeshore there by Park Lawn, and I'm having to go in to see her to get the sleeves shortened on my shirts because I was such a moose and there was so much volume in my upper back in my body that you know what I mean? Like it pushes your sleeves up, and then when you start not being a moose anymore,
they drop.
And you're like, I put shirts on. I'm like, why are my sleeves? They're hanging over my hands. And I told her, I said, she's like, what happened to your arms? And I'm like, it's not my arms. It's just I don't have 80 pounds on my upper back that are stretching the sleeves up to my elbows.
Right. The dumbbells aren't keeping them back anymore. So there you go. You're getting stuff tailored again.
I'm talking about all the way to the top.
All right, shut it off.
I'm justifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in, but the cream will rise to the top. Oh, yeah.
All right, they went rogue, man. I wasn't going to do it. JP and Doogie decided they're going to do it. Do you want to give us an update? Where are we at?
I'm not giving numbers, man. The numbers are so outrageous. I don't even think people would believe. When I'm all done, maybe like...
Do you have a number in mind, like you know where you're getting to? Like game weight, are you at like 185, 190, 200?
I think like 215, my playing weight would be ideal.
Okay.
And let me just put it this way. That's still a long way away. Long.
Okay, but you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's all I'm Manoah.
All right. You're Alek Manoah. It's one start.
I'm moving. It's one start, and it's like I did some work, but I hopped on the scale and didn't see a lot of movement. You just keep trucking.
That's right.
You just keep
Take it
trucking.
slow. Well,
That's
I was
a good
going to
sign.
say, take it slow, one step at a time, because I was talking to one of those strength and conditioning guys that does baseball pitchers, and he was saying he was concerned about Manoah even before today. This was before we saw the results of the first spring training start, and he was saying, the rapid transformation can often really screw up an athlete.
But
mess with your
Feschuk,
mechanics and stuff.
I don't think, like I saw some viz of him the other day. I don't think that's a rapid. He's not like he's skinny now.
No, he's definitely in better shape. There's no question about that. But I've heard the same thing. I'm pretty sure CC Sabathia has spoken about this on the record.
Yes.
Yeah, and he said, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm going to be fat.
He had to put weight back on.
Yeah.
Like he lost a ton of weight. He's like, I've lost command. I've lost zip. I can't pitch.
But this guy's not CC Sabathia.
I understand.
But he had that thing going. He was on the way to be.
I know, but he doesn't have the option to go to John Snyder and say that wasn't working for me. I'm putting back on.
And another thing that has changed is Sabathia wasn't dealing with a pitch clock.
True.
Which that has adjusted the way guys pitch, man. You can't go for a walk and catch your breath anymore.
Yeah.
Like you can't. You got to get up there.
Yeah.
And I think that there's got to be a middle ground there. Again, it's one start. It was obviously an ugly start, but that is all a part of the program that we're talking about here. Like he's really trying to make adjustments on the fly here. And it's pretty staggering what's happened with Alek Manoah when you consider this time last year. If he had a start like this last year, we would not have even talked about it. It would have been like, who cares, man? He's Manoah. He'll be fine. He'll figure it out. He gets the ball opening day.
I'll never forget. You know how they do the walk from the dugout to the
mound, yeah.
To the mound. All the pitchers walked together, and he sat down, and the catcher put a crown, just like LeBron would do, on top, and then he had the season after that. But I'll never forget that crown where it's like, this guy's the King Daddy Topper now, and it never materialized last year.
It didn't, man. And again, I'm pulling for the guy. I think
everyone is.
It'd be a great redemption story. The Blue Jays could really use it. It would be an addition basically out of nowhere. It's almost like a signing. If that guy reverts back to where he was 2 years ago, it's like you just acquire the best pitcher on the market or close to it.
Dude, and I'll tell you from the athlete side of it, he's probably in a scary place right now.
Yeah.
Because he probably thought he's going to have a 17 or 18-year career and throw a boatload. Like he probably was thinking down the line where he probably thought that there was a Garrett Cole type contract coming his way.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a $300 million contract.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're fighting for your life to play in the big leagues. Like you think about that stuff where you have big dreams and aspirations and you think about money and possible contracts. And now you're thinking about a possible start and not hitting batters.
Yeah.
That is a big mental battle he's got to deal with.
That's a great point because that is the other side of the mental battle. Like, it's not just I'm on the mound and I got to lock in here and I got to throw strikes. You know how it is when you're an athlete. Like, you show up at the facility, you might get there at 7 a.m. He's probably out of there by 11 a.m. There's a lot of time in your life.
That's a lot of downtime.
A lot of time. And you know where guys are going who have made $150 million? They're going to the compound in Dunedin.
Yeah.
You're going to the apartment, right? And you're like, I'm not there yet. I haven't made that money. I haven't made compound money. Like, that guy's made compound money. I want to get there, but I'm not there. But the only way you get there is you pitch, and you pitch well, and you pitch for a long time, and then you have compound money. But it's always right in your face. Like, the haves and have-nots in pro sports are right in front of you. The guy rolling in the brand new Rolls Royce.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, that guy's right in front of you, man. Like, you know who he is, you know what he's done, and they all want to get there. Yes, they want to win, they want to perform, they love the game, all that kind of stuff.
But you think about all of that stuff because he probably walked off after his first 3 innings at that All-Star game, yelling out punchy this and punchy that, thinking,
I'm the face of Major League Baseball.
Yes.
Like, I'm not far off from being the face.
He was doing a hit for MLB.
Yeah, MLB
Live.
Network Weekly.
Yeah, he was doing a weekly hit last year because he was kind of the new guy on the scene and the stud, and it was like, well, when did they pull the plug on that? Where they were like, we can't have this
not
guy.
far into the season. I think it was like and I wouldn't be shocked if the Jays kind of got in there and said, you can't have this, man. We can't have this guy speaking publicly anymore because of what's happening. But anyway,
well, it kind of does make you wonder sometimes about guys that get too much too soon. Like, just one step at a time. Right?
Mm-hmm. Like, Dave, that's what happens. It's like people are starving for talent, and when you're rebuilding and turning the corner, and you catch something like this, it's like, there you go. You're the opening day starter. You're going to the All-Star game. You get this, you get that, and you can come in a little bit out of shape, and we won't say anything. But when the you-know-what hits the fan, you got big-time problems.
Yeah, and it's like I was thinking about Grady Dick. Like, he comes into Toronto.
That guy played good last
Played really
Grady
good.
Grady Dick has been unreal recently.
Been great. But look, it took a while, right? And there was some real concern there. Like, opening few months of the season, you're like, what did they do here? Like, there's guys taken after him in the draft. That Hawkes kid down in Miami who's doing great. Pajemski kid down in Golden State, both available when the Raptors picked. They're both rotation players on really good teams. And you pick this kid and you put him on the McDonald's ad and the shaving
Gillette
ad
and all that. Yeah.
And and you were like, well, and I heard a lot of people around the team saying, maybe that's not the best idea. Like, wait until you do something before you start giving the kid endorsements and hooking him up and making him the face of the team in some ways. And they kind of realized, well, the other guys that are the face of the team might not be here by the end of the season.
Someone's going to do it.
He's one of our best bets, and Scotty's got every other endorsement. So,
yeah, exactly.
Give Grady the rest. But I think there were people legitimately worried that they'd given that kid too much too soon. Now, the nice thing about Grady Dick, when you investigate what's going on there, is he's got the really smart advice of just show up at the gym early, leave late, learn from the veterans, listen to everything, and things will work out. You can shoot the ball. You know that. You've always been able to shoot the ball, and we're seeing it now, right? This kid's release is just butter.
He is, sorry, I'm distracted in here in the studio, but he is really taken the advice well. I mean, that's clear. And on top of it, he went down to the 905. Like, they sent him down. He didn't have a choice, but he went down to 905. He embraced that. He worked on what he had to work on.
Didn't even play particularly well down there.
People in the studio right now, I don't think they have a clue we're on the air. Stuff. We're live on the air right now. This guy's just walking around. All right, we'll come back. Confirm or deny. Go ahead, walk right in front. There you go. We're good. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
I can neither confirm or deny that this is in fact a segment.
Austin trades Andrew Raycroft to Toronto in exchange for the rights to Tuukka Rask.
It's been my honor and a privilege to serve as the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs Hockey Club.
It's time for Confirm or Deny.
Do you regret giving all those gentlemen the no trades or no movement clauses?
I can neither confirm or deny that.
I can't confirm or deny.
All right, here we go. Confirm or deny. Brought to you by Summit Ford and South Lake Ford Lincoln, where there are no trade deadlines. We love it. They'll take anything on trade and save you the HST. Visit summitford.com or southlakeford.com. Confirm and deny. Very simple stuff. Statements are made. Go around the table. We confirm them or we deny them. You guys ready to go?
Yes.
Yeah. Confirm or deny. The New York Rangers should tell Matt Rempe to avoid premeditated fights moving forward.
Deny. They shouldn't tell him anything. What are they going to tell him? They don't know what goes into that stuff and what happens in warm-up. And if Delorier comes over, they don't know how to handle that. I think you just let him fly. Like, let him do it. But you can say to keep it under control where it's like, play the game. And if this stuff comes up, then you can deal with it. But it's going to be awfully taxing if it's every single night the toughest guy on the other team. You just want to go toe-to-toe at center ice. Mm. As much as I love it, I don't think it needs to be that much.
Yeah, like look at his face. He's taking a beating, man. Like that's him at practice. He's a monster of a kid, too.
He is.
6'8",
and what has he played? 5 games?
Yeah, and he's barely playing any minutes, but he's getting in these fights on the first shift. But I'm with you. I'm a denial because if I'm at Rempe, I would go back to, let's say it's Peter Laviolette and say, okay, I'll do that. Are you guaranteeing me I'm going to stay on the team? He's not going to make that guarantee. And Rempe, I think, is in a position here where he's like, the way I believe I'm going to stay is I'm going to make a name for myself. I'm going to fight when I have to fight. I'm going to hit who I have to hit. I guarantee you when they play at the Garden X, there's going to be Rempe jerseys all over the place. New York is flying here because
they're going to love
kid.
that dude.
And you know who knows this kid's name? Is probably James Dolan. I'll bet you the owner knows who Matt Rempe is, and he knows him because he's fighting. And that's a part of it here, is that Rempe is, whether you like it or not, believes he can make a name for himself and probably stay in the league by doing this.
But you're denying it as well?
I'm denying it as well. I don't think the Rangers can go up. I think his teammates could have that conversation, but I don't think Peter Laviolette should be in a position to say, you got to stop doing this.
Yeah, I'll deny it. It's not really for the team to say what he should do and what he shouldn't do, but I say the team probably should invest in somebody to help him learn how to fight if he's going to fight. I mean, this kid cannot protect himself. I mean, it's kind of disgusting that he's just got to.
Of all my years in the locker room,
bombs, though.
Of all my years in the locker room, I've heard guys be called out for not getting it in, not getting it out, for not back checking, for not. I've never heard someone be pointed out and saying, "We don't need you fighting like that ever."
Right.
Those guys kind of live in their own bubble, in their own world, where it's like, that's the toughest gig in the world, and don't tell me what to do.
Right.
But the question, to a certain extent.
Right.
The question is, though, like you look at his numbers, like he's playing 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Like that position doesn't exist in this league anymore. Like it really doesn't. Like the only, like you sort of look at it now. He's like a bit of a Linsanity New York phenomenon right now. They're calling him the Rempire State Building, and that sells.
Rempire State
Which
Building.
is a great handle.
It's a great handle, and that, like, New York's a special animal like that. Like when those types of fads take off in that city,
massive.
Like you become a massive celebrity, right? So there's something in it for you. If you don't think your career is going to be very long, you might as well make it really loud now.
And that's where I believe he's coming from. I can't read his mind, but I think he understands it's not tenable to only play 4 or 5 minutes, to your point. No. They're not going to keep him. He's not going to be around long enough. But he's trying to figure out, how can I stay? How can I make a name? And the fact is, it's a business. And one way you can make a name is the owner saying, man, there's a lot of those jerseys flying right now. Who is that guy? What's he up to? The GM, like they pick up on that. In New York, they pick up on that. And elsewhere, let's say in a couple of weeks, New York decides not our guy. Other teams will say, we'll take a flyer on that. We could sell that. We could use that. And I'm sure he's thinking that way. It may not be that deep, though. It may just be, I want to stay in the NHL, and I feel like this is how I can do it. And if that's the case, then I think you're going to continue to see this kind of stuff happen. Confirm or deny, Connor McDavid will not be nominated for the Hart Trophy this season. He's out. Will not be one of the 3 guys nominated.
As gross as this sounds, and as gross as I'm going to confirm it. I'm going to confirm it because I think if Matthews gets 70, he's in there. And Kucherov got 100. He's already got 100.
Kucherov's got to be in it.
Yeah. He's in. And so is Nate.
I think McKinnon's in it.
Yeah, but when you go 10, what has he gone? 10 games?
10 games without a goal. That's significant, man.
It is, man. For Connor McDavid, the guy gets 3 breakaways a night, and he's the most dominant player.
Absolutely. It's a weird streak. It's obviously a slump, and things aren't breaking his way. But it's pretty substantial that McDavid's gone 10 games without scoring a goal.
Let's just say
he had 64 last year.
10 games without a goal. He would have to go on an above McDavid heater to get himself back into the mix. And that's
Now,
just the truth.
let's put some context on that 10 games without a goal. During that
Lot
10 game
of
stretch,
assists.
he's got 23 assists.
Pretty good.
23.
Yeah.
I mean, Matthews has got 25 all year.
Right.
But you know what people are like.
I'm
They're
just-
like, oh,
no.
how does this guy not score?
But
It's a
no,
narrative-driven thing, the Hart Trophy.
And it's a narrative-driven thing. And, because he's won it a handful of times already, that hurts his chances. McKinnon's never won it. I think McKinnon is going to get a lot of votes because he's never won it.
Yes.
Simply for that
Lifetime
reason.
Achievement Award.
Yeah. And he's such an intense player, and he's just hard to dislike that guy. He just brings it, right? And so for sure there's a chance that McDavid's out of it, but the most alarming thing is 10 games without a goal, they've only won 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like if McDavid were kind of doing what he's doing, his production is a little down because he's talked about being a 200-foot player, doing whatever it takes to win. If he didn't score as much and they were winning a lot, like more than most, then it might be a different narrative. But if you're not scoring and you're not winning.
Yeah. Well, last night was the Stuart Skinner show. I mean, he was great last night. And yeah, I'm confirming this. I've thought this way for a while. He's out. In a large part, he gets cheated a little bit because he set the bar so high. McDavid set the bar so high that he has to go to such extremes, and this has not been one of those years. He had a bad start. The coach got fired. Yes, they had a great run. Now they're back to earth. His numbers are going to be very good, but not like, wow, out of this world. And as a result, he's not going to be nominated. And I don't think he deserves to be right now. I do believe it's Kucherov, McKinnon. I think you can make a case for Matthews right there. I think at 3. I think Hellebuck, maybe Quinn Hughes.
Yes.
Right? Like
Quinn Hughes for
Pasternak's
sure.
been unbelievable in Boston.
Pasternak as well.
Yeah, like there's Panarin's been great in New York, and they're rocking. Like there's a number of guys that I believe are ahead of him right now. All right, moving on. Confirm or deny. You see LeBron James tweet out last night asking the world to just leave Bronny alone. Right? He tweeted out that just leave him alone. He's a college kid. Let him have fun. After I think ESPN took him out of the 24 mock draft, and now basically they're suggesting he's going to go back to school and enter the draft in 25. Confirm or deny, LeBron James should not face any backlash for his tweet asking people to leave Bronny alone, considering he has pumped his tires constantly, including a tweet last year where I believe he suggested Bronny was better than players currently in the NBA.
Deny. He deserves it all because he brings it all upon himself. He's the one that talks about. And when you're LeBron James, he could have easily said, that's my kid. He wants to play. I'm going to leave him be. But no, the whole narrative the whole time has been, I'm going to play on the same team as this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait till he gets here because I'm going to play with him. So once you say that, you put all the eyes right on the kid, saying, how good are you? Where are you going to go? And it's all LeBron. LeBron complains about any kind of negative publicity, and yet he wants it all, and he puts it on himself all the time.
Totally. I mean, it's not just that he definitely set the kid up to fail by pointing out that he wants to become the Gordie Howe of basketball and have his son play on his team and it'd be a lifelong goal. By the way, LeBron's goal. We don't know if it's Bronny's goal. But not only that, this was the same guy who put it out there earlier this season that Bronny could play on the Lakers right now. That Bronny is smarter than the average NBA Bear. That Bronny was at the NBA level. When you look at the numbers, he's averaging like 6 points a game at USC. He's 6'3". He is not a first-round talent by anything other than the back of his jersey. And the fact that you know that if you get him, you might also get daddy.
He's only 6'3"?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought he was.
Yeah, and listen, he's had the medical issue, which was a very significant one.
Well, that's scary.
And it was really scary, and it meant this season was probably always going to be a difficult for him to really take off and use as a platform year. I'm gonna confirm it because of the sensitivity of it being his kid, and everything LeBron gets is deserved, and LeBron takes it on himself. Like LeBron does want it both ways. He wants to be considered the greatest of all time, but he also wants to complain that he gets criticized too much or that he's in the limelight too much. He wants people to believe he's not all about praise, yet he has the chosen one tattooed on his chest.
Yeah.
And
has proclaimed himself the best player in the world.
Right. And goes by King James.
I couldn't even have the stones to say to a tattoo guy, I want the chosen one in big letters across.
Right. But I'm uncomfortable with being
I don't
the
like
chosen
people
one.
talking about me.
I'm uncomfortable with it. So everything LeBron represents and everything he gets, he deserves, he's earned, and that goes both ways. He gets his tires pumped 99% of the time. Yes, there's 1% where he takes criticism. He's got to own that. But we're all parents here. I think he's having a tough time, and I think he's showing that here. LeBron, I'm saying, because he wants to prop up his kid. He probably believes it's in his best interest, his kid's interest, to use his platform to get him there. Yet now he's realizing he might not make it, and I think he doesn't know how to handle it. And I think that's kind of what went into that tweet. And I guess he's taken the tweet down because now he's like, I put myself in a tough spot. Like he literally tweeted last year, Bronny's better than players in the NBA.
Yeah.
Not to like paraphrasing, but he's like, I'm watching some of these guys in the NBA. Bronny's better than these guys. And now it's like, hey, leave him alone. Let him just be a college freshman and have fun. You can't have it both ways. But he's a dad, and I think he's confused, and he doesn't know how to handle this now.
That's what I think happened. He had a bunch of wine, and he was watching games, and he just said, my kid was sitting beside him, and he said, my kid's better than these guys.
Yeah.
And then he's like, what the hell did I just
What
do?
am I doing here? Because now he might not make it, and people are going to come ask me, what were you talking about?
Well, you talk to people who watch college basketball a lot, and the feeling is like Bronny is a really intelligent basketball player. Like LeBron's not wrong on that idea that Bronny's basketball IQ is off the charts, and it's a lot better than the average NBA player. So he was right when he said that stuff. He put that stuff out there that Bronny could play in the NBA based on that, and that's correct by everybody that I trust and talk to that have seen Bronny play a lot. But the bottom line is, like, Bronny's going to be a late bloomer, like a slow build.
Yeah.
If he's going to make it at all, right? And this idea that they were just going to rush him to the NBA, that was his dad's timeline. It wasn't his timeline.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think that's what people have a problem with. It's too much about LeBron and too little about the kid. And maybe now, maybe last night he started thinking, I got to start thinking about Bronny's feelings here.
I got to pull back
Bronny in a tough spot now.
Right, because exactly. He's been propping him up, and now scouts who are not beholden to him, to LeBron, are saying, I'm watching him, man. He's not going to the NBA right now. And LeBron's realizing that there's probably a real chance this guy doesn't make it. And guess what? He's still your kid. He's still going to be in your corner. You still got to back him up. And that's a difficult spot to be in. Like, I empathize to an extent with LeBron. I don't think he's helped himself, but he's wading through these waters. It's one thing to say I can speak on my own behalf forever, and I know what I'm capable of doing. He's trying to do it for his kid, and now he's realizing his kid's going down a different path. Like by 19, LeBron was already in the NBA. And now Bronny's going to be a college player for at least a couple of years. Maybe he's a 4-year player. Who knows in college?
There's nothing
wrong with that. Exactly. Maybe he plays in Europe. Who knows? He's got all the money in the world. He's going to have a great life. All right. Confirm or deny. Was brought to you by Summit Ford and South Lake Ford Lincoln, where there are no trade deadlines. They'll take anything on trade and save you the HST. Visit SummitFord.com or SouthLakeFord.com. Confirm or deny after dark coming up. We got a couple more in the chamber. We got a bunch.
Absolutely. Let's take a break and do one more.
All right, we can do that. Absolutely. But we got Justin Turner at 5:30. We're looking forward to that. Mike Johnson coming up. Leafs Vegas tonight. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, so you guys want a little confirm or deny to carry over. I got a 2-pack left. I got a 2-pack for you. Confirm or deny. Calgary Flames should be thinking of making the playoffs instead of selling at the deadline. Confirm or deny.
That is a doozy.
They're winning games.
They are winning
They're winning games.
But do you say to yourself, I want to recommit to this with the understanding that, because I've always said the worst position to be is to just miss out at the very end, or even just make it where everyone says you make it, you get the playoff experience, the gates, etc., but you get mopped up on the first round. And who can predict that? But it's a bad place to be. It's a bad place to be to go chasing it and just get out. So then you're no playoffs, you got no lottery pick, and you got nothing, and you got all the players that you didn't trade.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's your answer right there.
Yes.
It's deny. I'm with you.
It's deny.
You
It's
still
100% deny because
Yes.
of the possibilities that can happen of just missing.
Right.
And the negatives that will come out of that could put your organization back 7 years.
Yeah. It is dicey. I mean, there's no guarantee they're going to make it. There's still a number of points out, but they're playing well. They're staying in games. They're winning games. I think it's a denial, though, Dave. I think you sell on Tanev. You sell on Hannafin. If you get your price for Markstrom, you move. and you readjust and hope you can get back in the swing of things in 2 or 3 years. With Huberdeau, with Kadri. I mean, these are big tickets. Blake Coleman, good players.
Just hasn't worked out.
But it just hasn't worked out. And it's not going to work out even if you keep these guys.
That's the thing. You look at the playoff probabilities. You don't have a great probability. You're 5 points back with a game in hand. I mean, 24 games to go. It's tough to make up that ground.
Yeah, it is.
Not only the points, but there's 2 teams ahead of you in the, trying to get the same wild card spot you're trying to get. So I don't like their chances. And you're right. Like, they've got the best assets. They're the TSN trade bait board kings.
Yeah, right? They are. It's sponsored by Calgary.
Yeah, it really
has been since the start of the year.
Basically.
And the danger is if you get into a Columbus type cycle where you want to turn over and you want to get rid of, good players, Johansson, Seth Jones, and then you get a new crop of players, and then 3 years later they're like, get me the hell out of here too. That's a vicious cycle.
It's very dangerous.
It is. It's a vicious cycle because it's turning into the haves and have-nots in this league.
Yeah.
And if you get into that cycle, your fan base is in a whole lot of trouble.
That is where I could see the owner saying, you better get this done, man, if you want to go down that road, because I could get into the playoffs. That could be a couple of playoff gates.
Yeah.
Maybe we decide to keep Hannafin. Markstrom's here next year. We're a good team. Like, it's you got to sell it. If you're the GM, you really got to sell it, and that's.
I think you would have had to
make
made your mind up before Christmas, and you just couldn't waver off of anything that's happened in the last month.
Which probably happened when they traded Elias Lindholm.
Yes.
Right? They traded him 3 weeks ago. Speaking of which, we have one more Vancouver Canucks related confirm or deny. We'll get to that with Mike Johnson. Johnny's coming up in the next hour, and Justin Turner from Dunedin coming up with the Jays. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.